The Starforge has drawn our enemies together, so they may all die in a single glorious day.
The dark side of the Force is like a rasping whisper that reaches out all across the cosmos. A whisper that finds every ear, every mind, every soul, promising strength, power, victory, and above all else, freedom through the Force. Darth Malak, the main antagonist of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, is a character who followed that sinister whisper right down the rabbit hole until it completely consumed him. A once noble and principled Jedi Knight, twisted into this brutal tyrant, who in this video game threatens to destroy the entirety of the Galactic Republic as well as the Jedi Order with a seemingly invincible, impossibly large Sith armada. In so many ways, this is a classic Star Wars bad guy through and through, complete with cybernetic augmentations, simple power-hungry motivations, and plenty of opportunities to show off his black-hearted nature directly to the player. But when you dig a little deeper, Malak has so much more to offer us as a villain. His backstory and ultimate fate act as a tragic cautionary tale for the player in a way that I see as totally unique to the interactive medium of video games. A wonderful study in unchecked aggression and blind ambition that reveals the weakness in the dark side of the Force here in Star Wars. A villain with an extremely intimate connection to you, the protagonist, who has the privilege of revealing one of the single greatest plot twists in all of video game history. Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to the Villainpedia, a video series where we take these long looks at the most evil characters video games has to offer and just try to figure out what makes each of them special. I am Ghost, your host as always, and I want to offer you a genuine warning for this one. There's massive spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Also, shout out to all my wonderful patrons who support this channel away from YouTube. You guys are my favorite, and now I ask that you all strap in, get very comfortable, and join me as we cover one of the true greats, Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Malak. There is a strong belief in Sith legend of growth through pain. War, conflict, any sort of disharmony being legitimately preferable to peace, as the chaos of the battlefield is seen as the greatest teacher of all. Well, in that vein, Darth Malak is a villain whose entire life, really from beginning to end, is defined by war. And his constant connection to violence and this sort of primal meritocracy of combat, I think, is a huge part of his function as an antagonist. Now, if you like Star Wars, I don't think you're going to deny that the storytelling continuity in this franchise is absolutely abysmal. The new Disney canon, Star Wars Legends, all those old supplemental novels that range wildly in quality, which are now like halfway contradicted by Disney stuff. You got kids' TV shows you gotta watch, comic series, graphic novels. It's just exhausting to sort through. And if you care, which I personally don't, all of KOTOR here, including Darth Malak as a character, are as of right now non-canon. But you know what, man? This video is a positive place. KOTOR 1 and 2 are quite literally my favorite video games ever made, so we are going to be discussing Malak mostly within those strict confines of this game franchise and the original intentions of the developers and the writers. So, all that being said, KOTOR 1 takes place 4,000 years before the original Star Wars trilogy in an era obviously known as the Old Republic. A period of time where the Galactic Republic rules over the galaxy in tandem with the Jedi Council and find themselves constantly deflecting various sinister forces that might threaten their peace. Things like fallen Jedi Masters, armies of Sith rising and falling, Mandalorian raiders, corruption in the outer colonies. It's a damn good time to be a Jedi as there is plenty of work to do, and war is a common practice to maintain order. So yes, some years before the events of this game, Malak was one of those very Jedi. A Jedi Knight trained in the teachings of the light side who took a sacred oath to protect this republic and its people no matter the cost. Malak was known to be a jovial and competitive guy with a fierce moral compass of what he deemed was right or wrong. Some of his peers maybe would have described him as like self-righteous or a little bit pompous, but ultimately was very well liked and rarely alone. Malak was constantly locked in step with his close friend and fellow Jedi Knight, a young mysterious man by the name of Revan. Now, Revan was a prodigy in the Force, seen by the Jedi Masters as the star pupil, the potential future leader of the entire Order, and a man that was destined to make a massive mark on galactic history. However, Malak was never far behind. These two friends constantly pushed each other, made each other better, and shared a fierce desire for a deeper understanding of the Force. But remember, there is no greater teacher than the battlefield. And in these formative years as Jedi, something big and unforeseen happened that would change the course of these two men's lives forever. A huge Mandalorian army led by their bloodthirsty leader Mandalore the Ultimate appeared and sprang a brutal war of conquest on the peace-loving Republic without warning. Now, the Mandalorian people count a love of combat as like a cultural quirk of theirs and had quarreled many times with the Republic in the past in smaller doses, but this was different. Mandalore sought to outright conquer all Republic systems, eradicating the Jedi in the process, and by uniting all the scattered Mandalorian clans and recruiting Neo-Crusaders to join his cause, he seemed to have the manpower to actually do it. The invaders began by targeting Outer Rim worlds to goad the Republic army into a fight, and it worked. The army, composed of just common soldiers, rushed to meet the threat head-on, and they fought hard. Heroes like Carthonasi, an eventual companion here in KOTOR, led the charge in many early victories, but the price was steep, and the Mandalorians just kept on coming. Malak, Revan, and the other Jedi watched on anxiously, eagerly awaiting their opportunity to join this fight and defend the Republic as well, but the order never came. In fact, the Jedi Council issued a command that no Jedi of any rank was permitted to fight. Now, this was controversial to say the very least, but they sensed that they were being baited into something, that a bigger threat was behind this Mandalorian invasion and patience would prove the wisest path. But Revan and Malak were not having it. They were furious. And I think understandably so. I mean, they swore an oath to step up in moments just like this and defend the innocent, and instead they were being forced to watch this slaughter slowly turn in the Mandalorians' favor. But they could only watch for so long. As we get a nice glimpse of in KOTOR 2 during like a little flashback, these two Jedi recruited a splinter faction that all felt similarly, and then openly, emphatically defied the will of their masters. They led their little rogue Jedi force straight to the front lines to join the Republic soldiers and were ready to do anything, and I mean anything, to turn the tide of the war. Here in Star Wars, both Jedi and Sith alike greatly value the sacred practice of meditation. Something that requires peace, quiet, and maybe a nice little ambient space music playlist to get your head right. But sometimes the outside noise during those Mandalorian wars, it just makes it impossible to focus. And in times like these, we can all turn to our trusty Raycon everyday earbuds to find a little bit of zen. Now, I'm gonna keep it really real with you guys. Over the last few years, I had heard about Raycon and tons of different ads and stuff on YouTube, but it was only once I got to work with this brand myself that I realized just how high quality these everyday earbuds are compared to like premium listening devices that I already own and use. That active noise cancellation is no joke. It's incredibly effective at muffling out my dog Maze whenever she's being ratchet when I'm trying to work. And the 32-hour battery life is substantial enough that I don't think I've gone below 40-50% one time, especially with that quick charge feature. Wow. Now, something tells me Anakin never would have turned to the dark side if he had had a pair of his own and was able to just like lock in right here. So my friends, go to buyraycon.com/ghostcharm to get a hefty 20% off the best-selling everyday earbuds brought to you by Raycon, and support this channel as well as your own ears. Thank you Raycon so much for sponsoring, and now right back to the action. Star Wars is always full of warning signs when it comes to good guys turning into bad guys. Anger, ambition, attachment, I think you know all the symptoms. Life as a pure-hearted Jedi is meant to be a pretty monk-like experience. So even though this action of Revan and Malak's was made out of a place of genuine justice and compassion, it is absolutely the first stone set on the path to damnation. However, to their credit, the second they joined in the Mandalorian Wars, things turned around very quickly. Revan proved to be something of a tactical genius as a leader with maturity far beyond his years, and Malak was an absolute force in combat, showing absurd strength, courage, and determination as Revan's reliable number 2. The soldiers around these men found fierce inspiration in the way that they were being led in war, and meanwhile back home, the Council had a hard time celebrating. The Jedi Masters feared the many consequences in the Force of Revan and Malak's emotional recklessness in doing all this, and let me tell you, those fears were definitely founded. Because the foe the Republic was up against here, man, they were just brutal. I know many Star Wars fans out there know a fair bit about Mandalorians thanks to characters like Jango and Boba Fett, Din Djarin, and maybe a few others, but these old extended universe Mandalorians are just different. They fought like demons with superhuman coordination. Not because they were ever angry or hated their opponent or anything, but simply because it was in their DNA to bask in every moment of violence possible, to sharpen themselves through victory or die in glory. Canderous Ordo, who's another companion in KOTOR 1 and 2, is one such Mandalorian that was literally there. He fought against Malak and Revan in these wars, and he is just a phenomenal character that really digs into the cultural mindset of his people and how unemotional their brutality is. It's incredible. But all that is just to highlight the fact that this war was specifically traumatic. Once they were in the thick of the bloodshed, these Jedi realized that to defeat an enemy so ruthless, they were going to have to match that ruthlessness or die. So the Jedi Handbook was put aside. Revan and Malak began employing tactics that mirrored their enemies, which meant moral shortcuts were at times a necessity. They began to resent the weakness and inaction in their own soldiers' hearts, and to put it simply, without the guidance of the Jedi Masters and the Council, these men slowly but surely began to be consumed by their hatred for their enemy. And it's tragic, really, because just as this seed of darkness began to grow, Revan and Malak were being heralded as heroes all across the Republic, saviors of democracy and the light who dared step over that line. But they had become obsessed with total victory and nothing else. Now, many other events happen in the middle here. You can go check out those comics or old books if you're really interested in some of the extended universe lore, but as far as the video games go, this conflict came to a dramatic conclusion on the world of Malachor 5. A planet that had long been connected to an ancient Sith empire where a majority of the Mandalorian army and fleet were stationed. But here on Malachor, Revan took things to a whole new level of darkness. After challenging Mandalore the Ultimate on the enemy flagship to single combat and killing him, Revan then ordered the usage of a super weapon to melt Malachor 5 at the push of a button, killing untold amounts of both Mandalorians and Republic soldiers and instantly ending the war. Now, needless to say, this is a big deal in Old Republic lore, and it pretty much leads to everything that happens in the sequel of KOTOR 2, but that is a story for another time. What matters now is that Revan and Malak had won this war, but at the steepest of personal costs. Instead of then returning to face their master's discipline and enjoy a well-earned celebration, these two conflicted men simply vanished, heading deep into the unknown regions and cutting off all contact with the Republic. Some say they were trying to chase down the final remnants of the Mandalorian fleet, and others believed they were searching for a far bigger existential threat to the Republic in deep space. But their fate was a complete mystery. As weeks turned into months, the two Jedi heroes were assumed dead or captured and were mourned as such, until one day out of the blue, Revan and Malak returned to the fringes of Republic space not as heroes, but traitors, conquerors, and self-proclaimed Dark Lords of the Sith. Now, this little period here between the end of the Mandalorian Wars and then Malak and Revan's return is where some of the most interesting stuff is storytelling-wise with this villain, but it's also unfortunately where there's the most conflicting information. When KOTOR 1 came out and originated both of these characters, the backstory here was honestly pretty bare bones and straightforward. Then a few years later, KOTOR 2 came out and retroactively added a ton more detail and events around the Mandalorian Wars to allow its narrative to work. And then a few years after that, the damn MMO released and outright changed the very story of how these two Jedi actually fell to the dark side, amongst other unspeakably weird things, which was supremely disappointing for many fans like myself that just wanted KOTOR 3. So let's go ahead and ignore all of that and look specifically at how this game fills in the blank. Toward the very end of the Mandalorian Wars, or perhaps right afterward, it's not totally clear, Revan and Malak discovered something. On the grassy planet of Dantooine, where the two had once trained together as Padawans, they found an ancient sealed Jedi temple that held a secret of tremendous dark side power.
The dark side is strong in this place. I can feel its power. Is this wise? The ancient Jedi sealed this archway. If we pass beyond this door, we can never go back. The Order will surely banish us. Are the secrets of the Starforge so valuable? Can its power truly be worth the risk?
Very interesting. Now, what they found in this temple was a map, or I guess more specifically, a piece of a map leading to something that Malak here calls the Starforge. And it's very interesting to me how in this scene, Malak is the one of the two who shows some second thoughts about betraying the Order and doing whatever they're about to do, not Revan. Remember that for later. But this map was one of 5 that these two men then secretly tracked down all around the galaxy. One on Tatooine, one on Kashyyyk, Manaan, and finally the ancient Sith world of Korriban that when all stitched together, gave them the coordinates to this so-called Starforge to go and investigate themselves. Now, it's never really stated in-game how these two found out about the Starforge and these maps, but whether they knew it or not at the time, this quest was the thing to fully and completely turn them to the dark side. Located far out in the unknown regions, the Starforge was essentially a massive automated factory that was capable of assembling ships, droids, and starcruisers at a dizzying rate by drawing raw energy from the star that it was constructed in orbit around. That sounds like straight up Star Wars stuff, but it is far stranger than that. This space station is literally ancient, being built 30,000 years earlier, millennia before the Republic or Jedi even existed, by a people that no one alive now has even heard of, called the Rakata. The Rakata were this incredibly powerful, very funny-looking precursor spacefaring race that in the forgotten past ruled over the galaxy in its entirety. Their civilization was known as the Infinite Empire, and they achieved this level of dominance through cruelty and a strong natural connection to the dark side of the Force. The Rakatans enslaved all those they conquered. They constructed technological marvels, just like the Starforge, which enabled them to have one of the biggest armies in history and ruled with a malicious iron fist for generation after generation. Now, eventually, the hubris and hatred of the Rakata destroyed the Infinite Empire from within, and tens of thousands of years later, the only known trace of their existence is this Starforge. A superstructure radiating in darkside energy that lay undisturbed until Revan and Malak discovered it themselves. A discovery that eclipsed any remaining light in their hearts and filled their heads with delusions of creating a brand new empire in their image. Revan declared himself Lord of the Sith. Malak bent the knee, referring to his close friend from here on as his master. The Starforge was then powered on to create a massive Sith fleet quickly and efficiently that the two grimly turned toward the Republic. Thus began the Jedi Civil War, and the events of KOTOR are near at hand. I think this Starforge aspect of Malak's backstory is just incredibly cool stuff. Most of Star Wars, when you think about it, has shown us characters that fall to the dark side for far more interpersonal reasons, like Anakin or Dooku. But how badass is it that these guys just get hardened by this awful war and then lose themselves to an evil space station? It somehow makes Malak feel like a far more dangerous villain to me, as there isn't that core element there of heartbreak necessarily, just trauma, anger, and greed. Now, what would a villain lore video be without a healthy dose of narrative speculation? So personally, I have always had this kind of headcanon that Malak, going all the way back to their days as Padawans, was deeply envious of Revan on every level. I mean, imagine being the close friend of a prodigy. It's probably kind of annoying. Always fighting to keep up like Ron Weasley, trying to achieve and gain recognition, but never quite getting out of Revan's shadow. A cocktail of friendship, admiration, and legitimate jealousy. I mean, even that scene of Malak being like, hey man, do you think we should really do this? Revan just mogs that fool completely and ignores him, but Malak follows after like a damn puppy dog. I believe there was a power imbalance in this relationship at its foundation, which is fertile soil not only for jealousy, but also anger, resentment, and even hatred to blossom. Then on top of that, you add in the element of falling to the dark side, the whole Sith tradition of betraying each other. I mean, you just know that these two are not destined to ride off into the sunset together. Well, lo and behold, as they began to wage war on the Republic, Malak sensed conflict with his master, like his heart wasn't fully in it, and at some point confronted him about it, claiming Revan was too soft to lead the Sith. And this resulted in a heated lightsaber duel with horrific consequences. Now there's a very cool fan-animated film right here on YouTube by Unreal Cinema that imagines this fight and how it maybe could have played out, but the result was definite. Revan put his old friend in his place by besting him and cleaving his face wide open, removing his lower jaw completely. The The conversation was over, and Malak's life could only be saved with cybernetic implants, breathing and feeding tubes, a metal collar to protect his exposed windpipe, and a vocabulator to allow him to still speak. Absolutely nasty stuff, and this is the injury that really gives Malak that iconic appearance and quasi-Darth Vader voice that we all know and love him for in-game. Now, it sounds dramatic because it is, but honestly, it's just another day as a Sith. Malak resumed his awkward position as student, and the Civil War raged on. But honestly, in this fight, the good guys were getting absolutely crushed. Malak and Revan's previous experience fighting on that side allowed them to predict every tactic and move their opponent made. Plus, the sheer size of the Starforge created fleet just overwhelmed the Republic. But in the Star Wars franchise, my friends, destiny has its strange ways of working. So now we need to introduce a key character in Malak's story, a young Jedi fighting with the Republic named Bastila Shan, a woman with an extremely rare gift in the Force known as battle meditation. Now, this meant that if she sat down and focused her energy, her entire fleet would be empowered, kind of like an AoE buff, while also demoralizing the enemy fleet at the same time. So needless to say, she was being used heavily in this Civil War, and was arguably the single factor keeping the Republic's chances alive at all. So at some point, the war was getting so bloody that a plan was devised by the good guys to lure both Revan and Malak into the very same skirmish, and then stealthily board the Sith flagships with a small elite Jedi strike team to either kill or capture the two fallen heroes and end the war. Well, thanks to her unique battle meditation talent, Bastila was selected to be in this strike team, and when the time came, the plan was a success. The Jedi infiltrated Revan's ship, fought through waves of enemies until eventually they cornered the Sith Lord dramatically on the bridge for a final duel to the death. And this is where our guy Malak saw the opportunity of a lifetime. Sitting in his own ship a fair distance away, the hatred coursing through him, our villain immediately ordered a heavy barrage cannon be fired on Revan's command deck, attempting to kill both his master and the Jedi all in one swift action. And it was a direct hit. Revan was gravely injured and nearing death, but Bastila survived and used her powers in the Force to heal Revan just enough to keep him alive, steal the Sith Lord away, and escape back to the Jedi Enclave. Malak, meanwhile, had finally done it. After years and years of following Revan's will, he assumed sole control over the Sith army and claimed the title of Dark Lord for himself. For the first time in forever, he had the unquestioned final word, and with triumphant malice continued his brutal crusade against the Republic. So now we must ask the big question, what are we, the player, gonna do about it? Well, obviously when you first boot up KOTOR, you don't know a shred of the shit we just talked about. You hop in, hit new game, assuming the galaxy is somehow in trouble, and after making your entirely original custom character with the long brown hair, that iconic opening Star Wars crawl kinda tells you all you need to know. There's an evil guy named Darth Malak, he's trying to crush the Jedi, and I ain't gonna put up with that. You, a Republic soldier, wake up disoriented and confused aboard the Endar Spire, the Republic ship belonging to that one and only Bastila Shan, but the thing is getting blown to pieces and you have to make a mad dash to the escape pods here to evade the Sith and certain death. It's a nice hectic tutorial that introduces you to Republic hero Carth Onasi and sees you narrowly escaping down to the surface of a nearby Sith-occupied world known as Terrace as the game properly gets underway. Now you need to keep in mind that from the very beginning of this game, a huge aspect of playing KOTOR is the mechanic of choice. You decide to approach this thing morally as a hero or villain yourself, with the choices reflected in dialogue options, quest resolutions, as well as optional side activities. And even though here in the very beginning you know pretty much nothing, I love how this basic gameplay fact changes the way the player views this abstracted idea of a main villain down the road. Because I mean, if you're going for a dark side playthrough, you might think you want to replace that guy as the Lord of the Sith and be even more evil, and obviously, a light side playthrough plans on saving the galaxy from any darkness. But anyway, the main goal early on here has nothing to do with Darth Malak. You and Carth need to go find Bastila and fast. She crash landed on Terrace as well, but the Sith are actively scouring the planet for her. So while trying to keep your head down and remain incognito, you start poking around this cityscape of a world and learning the ropes. Honestly, it takes quite a while for Darth Malak to show up for the first time. Multiple hours of gameplay in, really, after you have explored this planet top to bottom, made some new friends, rescued Bastila, and started looking for ways to get off the planet. And because this is Star Wars, you know this introduction has to be something special.
You summoned me, Lord Malak.
The search for Bastila is taking too long. We cannot risk her escaping Taris. Destroy the entire planet.
The entire planet, Lord Malak? But there are billions of people on Taris. We'd be slaughtering countless innocent civilians, not to mention our own men still on the surface.
Your predecessor once made the mistake of questioning my orders, Admiral. Surely you are not so foolish as to make the same mistake.
Of course not, my Lord Malak. I will do as you command, but it will take several hours to position our fleet.
Then I suggest you begin immediately. You are dismissed, Admiral.
Yes, Lord Malak.
I think this is just a perfect peek at what you are up against. The voice performance by actor Raphael Ferrer is just so good, and I love how the voice fluctuates between sounding fully metallic and then slightly more human. It's really, really cool. Well, at this point, down on the surface, you're just trying to get off of Taris by stealing a ship that belongs to a local gangster, something that old crusty Canderous is actually helping you out with, and the timing couldn't be better, as right when you defeat this famous bounty hunter, Calo Nord, and secure the iconic Ebon Hawk, Malak's bombardment of Taris begins.
Taris is defenseless against our assault, Lord Malak. They are offering no resistance. The city is in ruins.
Resume the bombardment, Commander. Wipe this pathetic planet from the face of the galaxy.
Now, of course, your little gang is able to get away, but you see firsthand the type of villain Darth Malak is going to be in this game. Kind of like a king, a general, someone who stands at a dramatic distance from you and the action, preferring to send his various Sith cronies to chase you down. But after Taris, the narrative finally begins to take shape. Not necessarily in relation to Malak, but actually in relation to you. The protagonist begins to experience various strange dreams, visions of the past involving Revan and Malak, including that scene we looked at earlier when the two goons find the first star map. And very interestingly, Bastila is experiencing the same exact visions. Well, the next stop is Dantooine, the location of the Jedi School as well as Jedi Council, where Bastila wants to present you personally to the Masters because of these visions and your apparent sensitivity to the Force. And this is when many players are likely going to start wondering about their true identity. Why would you have this so-called Force bond to Bastila if you're just a common soldier? If I am Force sensitive, why am I not already a Jedi as an adult? They agree to train you in the Jedi ways even though you're like 30 years old, but tons of comments are made about Revan, about the dangers of following in his footsteps and falling into darkness. But the Masters want to help you because they have a keen interest in those visions you are having. They think they could be the key to winning the war against Malak. So after proving yourself worthy of a lightsaber and the title of Padawan, you are sent to investigate that very same temple that Revan and Malak discovered themselves, and inside you find, way deep in there, that fabled star map. Soon enough, everyone realizes that this must be you and Bastila's shared quest. Your bond in the Force, these strange visions, the locations of other maps. You have to follow in the footsteps of the fallen Jedi before you to piece this thing together just as they did. But still, the vibe is just weird. This guy, Master Vrook Lamar, is especially short with you the whole time. I mean, he's kind of a dick. And Bastila even confronts you to question you about your past, your upbringing, and several other very personal matters. Then when you're back on board about to depart, Karth makes a very good point.
You're a neophyte Padawan who's been saddled with the responsibility of tracking down these star maps. Why? That's not normal. I am not trying to provoke you or to imply that you're somehow responsible for the Jedi Council, but give me a hand here. There has to be a reason.
Listen, strange as it may seem, Mr. Onassi, we got a star to forge or whatever, and it's on to the meat of the game. Now you can tackle these 4 planets in any order you choose, which I have always really enjoyed, but I definitely think the order I mentioned earlier, Tatooine, Kashyyyk, Manaan, and then Korriban, feels the very best, especially for a light side playthrough, which this entire recording is. And once you select your first planet, you are blessed with another look at Darth Malak.
Lord Malak, the Starforge is operating at 200% capacity, far beyond our expectations.
I am more interested in the young Jedi Bastila and her battle meditation.
Kylo has agreed to help us capture the young Bastila for a very hefty fee, of course, but I assure you he is well worth the price.
Her companions are nothing to me, Kylo. But I desire the young Jedi taken alive, if at all possible.
Lord Malak, forgive me, there is something else. May we have a private audience away from the ears of the common soldiers?
I trust you are not wasting my time, Admiral Kareth.
I promise you will be very interested in what Kylo has to tell you about Bastila's other companions, Lord Malak.
Intriguing indeed. Well, Tatooine, like all the planets here in KOTOR, is chock full of very interesting side quests, side activities, companion quests, and even brand new companions to recruit like HK-47, the extremely evil droid who's one of my favorite video game characters ever. Each world also has its own dangers that Malak is personally throwing at you, but most importantly, each planet has its own unique way in which you need to locate its specific star map. Because I mean, the Rakata weren't building these ancient navigational caches in the middle of the town square. You gotta hustle, you gotta ask the locals and work hard to find each one of them. Tatooine has you teaming up with local big game hunters, fighting against sand people, then working with the sand people, and eventually killing a massive crate dragon which inhabits a cave where your prize is waiting. And that's 1 star map down. Also, you get to whoop Calo Nord's bitch ass one more time. Kashyyyk then has you entwined in the issues of local Wookiees, the evil Zerka corporations like enslaving them, and you have to choose a side when it comes to the local clan that your companion Zalbar has a familial connection to. But this world's star map is down on the planet's surface, and this one is different from all the others. It has a full terminal with a hologram of an ancient Rakata that you can interact with and ask various questions, and strangely enough, this computer recognizes you personally.
Primary neural recognition complete. Preliminary match found.
Match found? What the? It always muttered something about rejected patterns for me.
And that is 2 star maps down. Now, mind you, as dozens of hours of gameplay start to tick by, you are deepening your relationship with all of your companions. It's really the most important part of the KOTOR experience. And the relationship you develop with Bastila is especially interesting. She starts to reveal to you that she isn't so locked in on the Jedi Code as you maybe thought. She has serious conflict within her, temptations and emotions that she fights constantly to ignore, and that is going to come back up later on big time in regards to our villain. But before heading to your 3rd planet on this quest, we see that Malak is taking a new approach.
Calo Nord is dead, Lord Malak. He has failed in his mission, forgive me.
The penalty for failure is death, Admiral Kareth. But the failure was Calo's, not yours. You may rise.
Shall I hire another bounty hunter, Lord Malak?
No mere bounty hunter can stand against a Jedi. I shall not make the same mistake again. My apprentice, Darth Bandon, shall take care of our young Jedi friend. Find Bastila and bring her to me, alive, if possible.
As you command, Master.
This is such a needlessly evil scene here, I love it. It's honestly kinda goofy. This supposed badass named Darth Bandon, which I absolutely thought was Darth Brandon for a very long time, is now being sent after you, and Malak still refuses to take matters into his own hands at all, which is honestly pretty strange and shows either laziness or sheer incompetence. On to Manaan though, which is pretty much the roughest planet of the 4. That's all pretty clean silver interiors with massive beautiful oceans, but this world prides itself on remaining neutral during the war, so you spend most of your time in court. I'm not kidding. But the star map you are after here is, well, on the ocean floor. So you gotta find a way to look into some local trouble, take a submarine down there where you encounter this big shark, and then bada bing, star map number 3. This is where you are confronted by Brandon, who stood absolutely no chance against my min-maxed Guardian build. Goodbye, Brandon. However, when you are departing your 3rd planet, this is the moment things get quite a bit more personal.
Sith interdictor ship. They must have been waiting for us on the hyperspace route. We're caught in their tractor beam.
A massive Sith warship called the Leviathan catches the Ebon Hawk in its tractor beam and immediately begins hauling you in. The bad news is, the Leviathan is Malak's personal cruiser, but the good news is he's not in, and the commander, Saul Kareth, is the one who successfully captured you. Now, Kareth here is a great villain in his own right. He was Karth's mentor in the Republic Army and turned Kot to join the Sith, and he's like responsible for Karth's wife dying and all this horrible stuff. He's a total bastard. But after busting free, killing Saul, and making a break for it right when you're about to escape, at long last we meet our villain, face to face. And he has some very interesting information for you.
Darth Malak.
Down you go!
I hope you weren't thinking of leaving so soon, Bastila. I've spent far too much energy hunting down you and your companions to let you get away from me now. Besides, I had to see for myself if it was true. Even now, I can hardly believe my eyes. Tell me, why did the Jedi spare you? Is it vengeance you seek at this reunion?
What? You mean you don't know? All this time and you still haven't figured it out?
I wonder how long you would have stayed blind to the truth. Surely some of what you once were must have surfaced by now. Even the combined power of the Jedi Council couldn't keep your true identity buried forever, could it?
The Jedi do not believe in killing their prisoners. No one deserves execution, no matter what their crimes.
The Council would not normally accept an adult for training, but this is a special case.
They say the Force can do terrible things to a mind. It can wipe away your memories and destroy your very identity.
Revan visited each of these worlds searching for clues to reveal the hidden location of the Starforge.
The lure of the dark side is difficult to resist. I fear this quest to find the Starforge could lead you down an all too familiar path.
What greater weapon is there than to turn an enemy to your cause, to use their own knowledge against them?
Yes, that's right. The twist that at least back in 2004 blew people's minds all around the world. You are Darth Revan.
You cannot hide from what you once were, Revan. Recognize that you were once the Dark Lord, and know that I have taken your place. The Jedi Strike Team captured you, and the Council used the Force to reprogram your mind. They wiped away your identity and turned you against your own followers. But now you know the truth, Revan. The Council has failed in their attempt to make you their pawn. The will of a Sith Lord is not so easily manipulated.
Absolute cinema, peak Star Wars writing, and Malak does a sensational job delivering this twist with the confident rasp of a true villain. And no matter how Bastila tries to twist this, Malak is right. The Jedi absolutely used you for their own purposes. They meddled with your subconscious mind, your memories, your very identity, and this conversation changes everything about the narrative from here to the very end of the game in an immeasurable way. Because, I mean, just think about it. If you are in the midst of a light side playthrough, doesn't this change your mind? The Jedi, the beacon of all that is right and good, lied to your face. They betrayed you. Don't you now want to reclaim what they took and return to being Revan? Or maybe you want to use it as an opportunity for true redemption. Then on a dark side playthrough, maybe you see your identity as weak for being taken out by your own apprentice and you want to just burn it all down and be an even greater Sith Lord than before. Or you might think, damn, I was that bad and I still failed? Maybe the light has something to teach me after all. All those comments Karth and others made about you and how good you are at everything and how unprecedented your mission was suddenly have a whole new meaning. And these kind of meta RPG trope concepts are exposed as a major plot device. I mean, 10 out of 10. It is just perfect. It's the best game ever made, and I adore that it comes straight from the betrayer's mouth. Sensational. So this isn't the end of the game, but still, blood must be spilled.
A small part of me has always regretted betraying you from afar. I always knew there were some who would think I acted out of fear, that I did not want to face you. But now fate has given me a second chance to prove myself. The Jedi Council were foolish to let you live. I won't make the same mistake. We shall finish this alone in the ancient Sith tradition. Master versus apprentice, as it was meant to be.
Malak wants to see how you measure up, and watching this back, it is honestly hilarious how badly I tossed the fool here. But this little mini encounter I think is really good cinematic stuff. Malak retreats, you gotta go find him in these little chambers bathed in red light, it's very cool. Then, in an unexpected show of courage, Bastila leaps in, sacrificing herself to tank Malak, allowing you and Karth to safely escape the Leviathan and finish the hunt for the Starforge. Now, every great villain needs his or her big, iconic moment. It could be a very difficult boss fight, a single extremely evil act, or in this case, a plot reveal that defines the entire game as an experience. And years later, when I think about Darth Malak, when I think about Star Wars, this is what comes to mind, no question. It's one of my favorite scenes in video game history and the thing that cements this character as a legend for all time. But at this point, the job ain't finished. There is no world more appropriate to venture to last than the ancient cradle of the Sith, Korriban. And here you find quite a flavorful path to the star map indeed, joining a Sith training academy, entering the Valley of Tombs where these old legendary Sith Lords are all buried, and in the final tomb of Nagasato, the coordinates to the Starforge are assembled at last, and all you need to do is go back to the Hawk and head straight for it. But meanwhile, things are not going well for Bastila.
You are strong, child. But I will break you.
I'll never fall to the dark side. You think torture will turn me, Malak? You are a fool.
Torture? No, dear Bastila. You misunderstand. This is but a taste of the dark side to whet your appetite. When you finally swear loyalty to me, it will be willingly.
I legitimately think that here from his perspective, Malak sees himself as having won the game. He now has everything he needs. Now sure, I think he would still love to kill Revan too, but with the Starforge and the power of battle meditation, he's already invincible. Again, this is a character of extremely simple motivations. He wants to steamroll the Republic and doesn't seem capable of thinking critically about anything else. But ultimately, before you can all approach the Starforge and finish this fight, you have one final stop on your journey. An unknown, unmapped world in the very same system as the space station that honestly looks like Hawaii. But it's actually the ancient homeworld of the Rakata, and here there is a 30,000-year-old temple sealed by some strange magic that holds all the long-forgotten secrets of the Starforge. Now, it might be a little tangential, but this planet, man, is just a lore gold mine. And believe it or not, when you land, there are quite a few Rakata still living. But instead of meeting highly technological super aliens, you encounter aggressive, primitive, and very unwelcoming people. However, on this little island, you learn that there are two tribes, the Black Rakata and the Elders. And while the Black tribe has forgotten their own ancient history of domination and technology, the Elders have preserved it. But each of these tribes remember you as Revan, coming here just 3 years ago, and you must now once again retrace your own steps to finally get inside. Now, God, there are so many lore tangents I would love to go on, but this is a Malak video.
Every day the Starforge adds more ships to our fleet. It is operating at nearly 300% of our projections. The fleet is assembling around the Starforge and awaits your instructions.
Patience, Commander. My new apprentice is nearly ready. Once Bastila joins her battle meditation to our enormous fleet, we shall be invincible. Then we shall begin our final conquest of the core worlds, and the Republic will be crushed forever.
Now you just got to love the little scenes like this, man. It is so quintessential Star Wars, channeling that scene in Empire where Darth Vader's head looks like a damn scoop of Haagen-Dazs. Also, wow, he is nasty looking without the collar. Cover yourself up, man. So anyway, after clearing that old Rakata temple out, learning all the lore you can fit into your little rat brain, and heading to the summit to disable the disruptor field protecting the Starforge, a familiar face awaits you. It seems that Malak succeeded and Bastila has fallen to the dark side. Now, as much as I'm criticizing his tactics as a villain, I think this really highlights Malak's pure power. He's still a master of the Force and knew just how to crack into a mind like this. I've always thought he maybe saw his previous self in Bastila and kind of took advantage of that. But anyway, after a short non-lethal fight, Bastila runs off back to Malak, and you head back to the Ebon Hawk. The Republic fleet is given the coordinates of the exposed Starforge, and soon enough, Jedi Knights and Republic starships are on their way for what will be the final battle of the Jedi Civil War. It's time to give Malak a full frontal assault, infiltrate the Forge, and handle business once and for all. Now, in my opinion, the design and vibe of a video game's final dungeon or zone is vitally important. You want to make sure you're rewarding the player for making it all this way and create a memorable environment that feels epic and earned, a worthy backdrop of a climactic conclusion. And in that regard, I think the Starforge is excellent. It really does feel old and alien. These massively tall ceilings, the windows looking out on all these ships being produced. I mean, you can smell the dark side here for sure. But game design-wise, the Starforge is an extremely short and straightforward area to carve through. Malak yet again sends wave after wave of enemies after you, in between little scenes of him saying some hard-ass quotes as he continues to just run away from you upwards toward the command center of the station. And then, of course, you have to decide the fate of Bastila Shan, which is a fantastically written scene that ends in you disrupting her battle meditation one way or another and allowing the Republic to make their final push to destroy the station. Now, I know I say this often, so don't come after me in a couple months, but I would love to make a video on Bastila someday. I think your relationship with her and the way it explores the light and dark sides of the Force and love and betrayal is just really, really good stuff. But anyway, if you let Bastila live or die, you move on to climb to the observation deck in this epic window-covered room with the battle raging outside amongst the stars, where before you stands your old student. Malak has nowhere else to hide. It is time to end this.
Well done, Revan. I was certain the defenses of the Starforge would destroy you. But I see there is more of your old self in you than I expected. You are stronger than I thought. Stronger than you ever were during your reign as the Dark Lord. I did not think that was possible. Foolish words. The darkness and the light wage a constant war within you. The balance is tipped one way now, but it can easily be tipped back. Savior, conqueror, hero, villain, you are all things, Revan, and yet you are nothing. In the end, you belong to neither the light nor the darkness. You will forever stand alone. We have been inexorably pushed to this final confrontation, Revan. I see now that this can only be settled when one of us destroys the other. Once again, we shall face each other in single combat, and the victor will decide the fate of the galaxy.
Here we go. Now, honestly, this final fight is a little bit strange, because for such a strength-wielding marauder type of villain, you would think it would just be a straight-up slugfest. But if you don't know what you're doing mechanically, you're assured to get your ass handed to you at least 1 or 2 times. Now, do not get me wrong, Malak is strong, very strong, but once you grind that health bar down, you see that the Dark Lord has a little trick up his sleeve.
You cannot beat me, Revan. Not here on the Starforge. Not when I can draw upon the power of all these Jedi. And once you are beaten, I will do the same to you. You will be trapped in a terrible existence between life and death. Your power feeding me as I conquer the galaxy.
So if you don't have any way to disable these pods, you're going to be forced, like I did here in this footage, to pretty much fight Malak straight up 9 consecutive times until he runs out of Jedi to harvest. The only way to disable them is with force powers like Destroy Droid, Force Lightning, etc., but I honestly think there's something satisfying about proving to Malak over and over and over that when it comes down to a one-on-one fight, he was never and will never be any match for Revan. And so you beat on him until at last your old friend can fight no more.
Impossible. I cannot be beaten. I am the Dark Lord of the Sith. Still spouting the wisdom of the Jedi, I see. Maybe there is more truth in their code than I ever believed. I cannot help but wonder, Revan, what would have happened had our positions been reversed? What if fate had decreed I would be captured by the Jedi? Could I return to the light as you did? If you had not led me down the dark path in the first place, what destiny would I have found? I suppose you speak the truth. I alone must accept responsibility for my fate. I wanted to be master of the Sith and ruler of the galaxy, but that destiny was not mine, Revan. It might have been yours, perhaps, but never mine. And in the end, as the darkness takes me, I am nothing.
Simply amazing. These are some of the finest dying words of a villain in any video game I have ever played. There is genuine remorse there, confusion and sadness. The fact that he sees it as a dark path that you took him down, which we saw in that flashback, it just hits and works so beautifully. The long, violent story of Darth Malak concludes in the only way it possibly could: failure. Destined to live forever in the shadow of the man he once called master, and before that, his best friend. From Malak's defeat, the game concludes in dramatic, celebratory fashion. The Starforge is destroyed, and Revan, along with his crew of beloved companions, are all hailed as saviors of the galaxy. The old masters are all there cheering you on, Bastila is redeemed, and the Republic gets to live its happily ever after, at least until the next disaster. Now, the dark side ending is a completely different story altogether, but I personally choose to see the redeemed Revan as the official, true, canon way of things. Darth Malak as both a Star Wars and video game villain is just good, clean, very evil fun. I see him as the perfect fit for the game he is in. Although, I recognize that there are many fans out there who are at best a little bit lukewarm on this character, especially compared to the incredible villains that are found in KOTOR 2. And the criticisms I have heard about Malak over the years boil down to this: simple motivations, over-the-top evilness, and just kind of a cartoony villain vibe. And honestly, I'm not going to disagree on any of those points, but I do think those qualities are exactly what helps him be so effective. Because when you take a step back and look at KOTOR 1 in its entirety, the storytelling style of this game for an intro into a brand new era in Star Wars is very complex. Between all of the companion quests, the planet-specific characters and stories, and your own self-realization journey as Revan, I think if your main villain was anything other than this reliably evil, relentless force, it would just be a little bit too much. In a game that is all at its heart about change, the flow of the Force, the balance between light and dark amongst all your party members, Malak is that one static factor that I think you need. Your North Star of where you are ultimately heading, whether you're good or evil, and what you need to take down if you want to reach the credits. Now yes, I think Darth Malak is a straight up bozo. He had a massive Sith army at his disposal, the Starforge 3D printing destroyers every 20 minutes, the Republic on its heels, and he still elected to hire Calo Nord to go after you instead of just popping down to Dantooine and taking care of business himself? Darth Brandon, are you kidding me, man? But again, that is the point. Revan was the mind, and Malak was the muscle. He was never meant to lead this army, lead the Sith ideology, and lead this war effort, and thus, he failed. Star Wars is a franchise that has always been and will always be shaped by the bad guys. I mean, the whole concept of the Force is like a one-of-a-kind storytelling vehicle when it comes to the philosophy of war, politics, and life itself. So even though KOTOR's sequel went on to take those explorations to a much deeper and more interesting level than probably any other Star Wars media ever, let's never forget where Knights of the Old Republic first started. An incredibly well-written, concise story about power, betrayal, choice, and the galaxy being a far more complicated place than you first thought. Darth Malak offers us a peek inside the hollow pursuit of power without wisdom, and he remains one of the most memorable villains in Star Wars lore to this day, not because of his strength, but because of his tragic, misguided pursuit of it.